Welcome to our panel series, everyone. Conversations on change. It's really good to see some familiar faces and familiar names as well. So, those of you who are joining us for the very first time, let me start by sharing a little bit about us. We are Change at All, and as you can decipher from our name, we're a boutique consulting firm that specializes in change and transformation. We partner and work with clients in various industries from all over the world, providing customized solutions. So we are now in an era of constant disruption where leaders are being challenged to create workplaces that are not only high performing, but also resilient and psychologically safe. We'll be exploring these themes in detail today as we chat candidly with our guest speakers, HR and transformation experts, Avik Ghosh and Elena Shupoleva. Let's find out more about our experts now. Elena has about over 20 years of experience across human resources. She has a wealth of experience when it comes to providing strategic HR leadership and direction on people matters, and she ensures sustainable shifts in workplace culture. With an emphasis in HR strategy, organizational transformation, diversity and inclusion, employee engagement and well-being, and talent and performance. She has lived and worked internationally in Asia, Europe, and the US. Hi, Eliana. It's so great to have you with us today. Welcome. So now we'll talk about Avik. Avik Ghosh is a senior HR and transformation leader with deep experience building organizations all across Asia and emerging markets. He has led major redesigns, market expansions, and culture shifts in global companies spanning the food, energy, and sustainability sectors. His leadership philosophy, leadership in motion, is rooted in understanding how people and systems lose momentum under pressure and in designing the rhythms, decision pathways, and cultural signals that help teams recover quickly while moving with intent. Currently, the HR head Asia at Kiva, Avik was previously Executive Director of People Strategy and Enablement at Anvil Energy, where he led HR, administration, IT, and marketing while scaling a new rooftop solar business across India and Southeast Asia. And prior to that, Avik was with Carey Group, where he held senior regional HR roles across Southeast Asia, NZ, and APMEA. His experience includes greenfield expansions, M&A, merger and acquisitions, integrations, and building future-ready talent pipelines that really strengthened Carey's global leadership. Hi, Avik. It's so good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Adeline. Thank you, entire Change at All team. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you both here with us. Now let's get started. As organizations rethink the future of work, what must leaders do to hardwire empathy and safety into the redesign? How do we lead with empathy? Are there best practices on sustaining engagement while cultivating a culture of trust? And these are just a few themes we'll be exploring today. We'll unpack what safety truly means, the tensions that leaders face, and the practical choices that shape culture under pressure. So, Elena and Avik, I would first like to begin by setting the scene. When we talk about safe cultures today, what does safety really mean in a world of constant uncertainty and change? Perhaps ladies first. Elena, would you like to take this?
Sure. So again, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and obviously in this prestige forum, and thank everybody for your curiosity, learning agility, and for dialing in into the session. So if we talk about psychological safety, I think first of all, this is a feeling, right? And feelings are different for everybody. So how I feel safe, it may not be how the other person feels safe. So there is no such thing as that's what psychological safety is. Typically, in times of change, psychological safety would mainly be related to, will I have a job tomorrow? So years ago, when we talked about psychological safety, we were more talking about feeling safe being yourself at work. I think we've overcome that as a society, some groups faster than others. But in the disruption context, I'd say, will I have a job tomorrow? So I'll pause here and I'll get Avik to add.
Yeah, and I think Elena, just picking up from what you said, and the fact is, uncertainty is a way of life. We've all seen it in our professional careers. Uncertainty is here to stay, and I think with uncertainty, the thing that gets amplified the most is speed. Uh, there's ambiguity, and there is consequences of errors. All of these things get amplified in uncertainty. And for me, that safety then comes in terms of uh, really operating under the system of uncertainty, of higher speed, greater ambiguity, greater consequence of mistakes. And as a result, really speaking, the safety comes when there is sort of clarity of direction, when direction is set, when there is clarity of judgment, and when there is clarity of recovery. So for me, these are really what leads to when people say feel safe.
Thanks for that, Avik and Eliana. I think it's so true. We do need to have clarity. I totally agree with you on that, Avik. And Eliana, I really like what you said. It really resonated with me, what you said about safety. That definition of safety is different for everyone. It's so such a personalized concept. And talking about the definition of safe cultures, how has this definition actually evolved through the years that both of you have noticed? Avik, would you like to take this first?
I think at the onset, safety was really physical safety. Am I going to be safe at the workplace? Am I going to come home safe? And that was maybe the starting point of safety. I think with knowledge work, with the transition of work, it kind of moved on to, do I have a voice? Will my voice be heard? If I speak up, what are the consequences? And that was maybe where a lot of us have experienced safety. I think more and more so it is moving into the domain of uh, judgment, and how will decisions I make today be reviewed tomorrow? I'm making decisions in an uncertain environment where I don't have all the information. Things are ambiguous, and I will feel safe if I am clear on the parameters on which judgments are made. And I think that is the transition that we are seeing in the definition of safety as we work today.
Absolutely, and I totally agree that it's actually a continuum, and I like how you pointed that out, that it's not just about today, but what's going to happen, what you're saying today, how is it going to be taken and viewed tomorrow. Eliana, anything to add on that?
Sure, sure. So I just wanted to add to what Avik said previously, and I really like this as a clarity. I would just add a clarity in chaos. So I think it's moving with the speed, yeah. So to talk about evolving, I think I did mention previously, sorry, and I agree with Avik, it was different definition of safety, and that's how it evolved. But there is also a fundamental shift in, I would say, a speak up culture. So in order for the person to feel safe, there has to be a mechanism for the person to be heard in the event that the person it has what to share. So beside employee assistance programs, which I think now is a new norm to have, it is no longer an added benefit. We don't mention this when we recruit people, but it is also having a third party or any other mechanisms and an assurance that you will be treated with dignity and respect. If you think about sort of why people are not speaking up, right? So there are potentially three reasons. One is, what is it going to change anyway? Second is fear of retaliation. And third could be cultural norm, right? So especially in Asia, we prefer the culture of harmony. So, it's okay, I will just take it. What is definitely different is position of leadership on encouraging of speak up. So what I've seen a shift is that leader who has willingness to accept feedback and openly asking their employees to speak up is really considered a good leadership trait. Whilst previously, oh, you have too many escalations, people, that. So the leadership maturity around that. Yep.
Thanks for that, Elena. Thanks for shining that light because actually it is true. We think of the word dignity and we take it for granted, but it's not actually something that we can really take for granted. And I like what you said about how types of leadership has changed and evolved through the years, and that's why that definition of safety has also evolved accordingly. So now that we've talked about what safety really means, the different ways that it means, the different ways that it has evolved, cultural safety, we do live in a time of disruption now in multiple ways. And why is it that culture is the first thing that gets tested during times of disruption? Uh,
Elena?
yes, Elena. Perfect.
Okay, sorry, I thought that you wanted to say. So culture is the fundamental brick of any organization. Culture is what brings people together because they share the same values, they share the same interests. So if there is any disruption starts at the core. So if you think about sort of what really sort of disruptions that we are dealing with, right? And be that geopolitical instability, be that technological advancement, even energy transition. There will be impacts on trade, supply chain, economic instability. What we are seeing currently is companies are constantly looking for the ways how to bring costs down because they could lots of work that was done before by people can be done by AI. Locations don't need to be the headquarters or the high cost location. So when you're not based together, when you have to work through the bot, culture changes. So to me, that external factors is really affecting and making us be agile or learn to be agile. If you are not agile, if you can't fast, get used to the fact that you'll be talking to a bot, that you will be based, you can be a global nomad. And as a leader, you can accept global nomad on your team. I think that's definitely something you'll miss out. But yeah, that's where I see it impacting the culture.
Thanks for that insight, Eliana. How about Avik? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think as Elena said, culture is how things are done in an organization. And in this world of disruption where things are changing constantly, where there is greater speed, there is greater ambiguity, there is greater consequence of mistakes, core principles get shifted. And that's where culture gets disrupted. People then sort of are second guessing the organization and they are moving into a sort of self-preservation mode rather than taking the organization forward more. And that's why I feel culture, how things happen in an organization, is the first thing that gets disturbed when there is unpredictable change in the environment.
That is true. A lot of the time, it's really quite easy to sort of lose grasp of our value system when it comes to external turmoil. So we talked about evolving leadership styles over the years and how now a lot of leaders are even encouraging that speak up culture. Um, what what are leaders, however, what are leaders most likely to underestimate about the impact of disruption and uncertainty on their people and their culture and their teams? Would you have any case studies or real world examples of how that has happened before?
I think speaking from experience as well, I think what leaders most underestimate is the kind of load that it creates on employees in guessing where the organization is, what direction we're going, what is going to change tomorrow. there's a huge amount of energy drain that happens in people in terms of second guessing the organization, trying to figure out what is changing, because with disruption, those principles of decision making are changing. And now people are spending their time trying to understand and guess and work out and gossip what's changing. And I think leaders sometimes don't realize this. In their positions, they might have greater visibility, they might have greater information, information asymmetry exists, and employees spend a huge amount of time and energy in guessing. And that's not just the time, it's also the energy drain that happens when people are spending their time doing this.
Absolutely agree. And it actually relates back to what we were talking about before, about clarity. Eliana, do you have anything to contribute on
I
this?
think the biggest underestimate would be impact on the bottom line. So impact to the business that that can be created by not having the right culture of psychological safety is phenomenal, and I do think that leaders underestimate that impact. So if you think about sort of more broadly, so unsafe culture, it can be shown as a silence in meetings, not contributing to your best, blames, reactivity, hidden decision making, no escalation. We spoke about that, of issues that should be escalated, and finally, emotional exhaustion or disengagement. Disengaged employees, they do not drive discretionary efforts. And the companies are built on those people that drive discretionary efforts to bring business results. So I would possibly link it directly with the bottom line.
Thanks for that, Eliana. I think if more leaders tuned into this and they found out that the bottom line is going to be really, really suffering, they would pay a lot more attention to really building that psychological and cultural safety in their teams. So we talked a little bit about how organizations, how leaders can see, the signals that employers, organizations can see that their employees are not feeling the safest, right? When they are disengaged, when they don't feel like they can speak up. What are the signals to employees that a culture is actually, in fact, not safe?
So let me go first. I think I've mentioned just now. So it's some of those, like not speaking up, not feeling even interested to talk. What is it going to change? Also by always sort of a blame culture, not a cohesive kind of culture. So maybe what I instead could say, sort of what safe culture shows, right? So some of the traits is where employees without push get together, challenge ideas freely, respectfully. People admit making mistakes and they admit it early, and they're willing to take accountability and say, put up their hand and say, I'm going to do it. Leaders share context and listen first. Clear communication, even if it's a chaos. And of course, transparency outweighs speculation. So you imagine yourself in flying on the plane, and then huge turbulence starts or something out of it. It's the voice of your captain, it's the voice of your leader that will tell you, we are in the turbulent zone, just give me 10 minutes, I will get us out there. Imagine if you don't hear this voice clearly and telling, I will get you through that. So same happens in the turbulence, in the business, in the world. It's the voice of the leader that will create that safe. So sorry, I'm a bit of diverted because I've answered that, but I will let Avik answer.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
I think that analogy is a really great one, actually. It's absolutely also correlating to what we have been talking about. It's all about that communication, that transparency, and totally agree whether a culture is safe or not safe. That signal to employees is actually that sign, as Avik said, whether you will get into trouble if you speak up now, if you, will you get into trouble tomorrow, that is what signals safety or not. Avik, anything to add?
I think, and Yelena spoke very much on the role of leaders in terms of calming the ship, sort of sending that voice of calm and clarity in terms of, this is going to last for 10 minutes or this is going to last for so long. I think aside from that, or over and above that, I think organizational systems, and in this case, review systems that organizations have are a big telltale in terms of, is it a safe culture? Uh, Organizations will always do postmortems, reviews, understanding of what went wrong, but really how those meetings are structured and what the purpose of that meeting is a very big telltale in terms of, is this a safe culture? Are my decisions being reviewed based on the information I had at the time versus, is this a witch hunt of sorts? And I think employees watch for these systems, how organizational systems support culture. And to me, the biggest telltale is the review mechanisms that organizations have that will often tell you whether it's a safe environment or not.
That's a really great piece of advice. And I think it also goes to, as you were talking about, purpose and intent. It's really easy to see what the purpose and intent is behind certain initiatives, certain plans when we go and review them. So thanks for that. So now we're talking about systems, right? You said setting systems in place. Can we talk about some best practices? Can you name a few practical ways that organizations can actually embed safety into everyday systems and decisions? Would you have any real-world examples to share?
Maybe I'll take that one first, but for me, organizations are in different environments, different organizations, just different things. I think what really matters is the consistency that organizations have in their systems. Employees are reading for consistency in terms of how things are dealt with. When they're different environments, an operating theater has very different pressures to flying an aeroplane to leading a food and beverage industry. Pressures are different, but really is in that environment is the organizational systems
Avik is cutting out of connection a little bit, but I found it very interesting that he was talking about flying a plane again. And actually, while Avik's connection is coming back on, I'll just add on what I felt inspired to think when he was going on, which is Elena. I think it's so true. Avik was talking about consistency, and going back to your airplane analogy, that is so true because imagine if the captain's voice changes halfway through the plane, the flight, you would feel really, really out of place. You'd feel like very disjointed. So I completely agree, taking both Avik's uh, take on consistency being so important and your very, very appropriate analogy of that flight captain giving that voice of safety.
So let me fill in the gap, and definitely having look forward for you to redial. So sort of in terms of systems, I think there are sort of there are many offers on the market about coming and talking about a culture of psychological safety, but it's not until my line manager works with me or I work with my team that we could start building. And the most important role is the first level leaders, because they basically far from top, but yet they have the most important role to lead. So the best one of the best ways for me to I still work in an organization is basically to understand what drives unsafety. And for example, there's constantly change, and for us in Singapore, it's changes. We see companies leaving, we see colleagues and friends being retrenched. It's been ongoing. So one way is to decide, what, I'm scared, or another one is just get ready. Always ready. So not to leave in a fear you'll get retrenched, not to be scared of it. So if you really start thinking, why are people worried? Why are people not sure that they can find a job? The focus of organization should be not only to preserve the role, but to get employees ready to be fast reskilled to do another role. That way, even something doesn't work here, something will work out. They say how many people will lose jobs because of AI. Actually, I don't think so. I think there will be as many new jobs that require knowledge of using AI. So as an organization, I definitely have an obligation to ensure that I've skilled my people to quickly adapt and for the leaders to have these conversations on the need to be adaptable.
Thanks for that real world insight, Elena, and also for filling in the gaps while we wait for Avik to join us again. So, this is all actually making me think about another question, which is, can you think of any, in your experience, are there any other real world examples where you've seen leadership decisions actually shifted trust, whether for in a better way or a worse way?
Sorry, I keep muting because there is a thunder sort of outside. It's really, really loud.
No
Sorry for
problem at
that.
all.
Yeah, so I think sort of definitely, I think some core pillars of a safe culture definitely will involve consistency in building trust. It's about predictable leadership behavior. It's about fair processes and equitable treatment. Even though I may not feel safe about the new few change, I know that I will be treated fairly. That's the bare minimum that I could see leaders should be practicing. So I think in terms of what leaders can do, practical examples to build that culture is it could be as simple as start meetings with a quick emotional check-in. Say, here is what we know, here is what we don't know. Thank people, reward people, celebrate people. Those who surface risks, those who come vulnerable, celebrate it, praise it. Make small commitments, don't make big commitments, but keep to your commitments. And, just purely ask what would make this space safer for you to speak openly? What would make this space more happy for you? We spend 1/3 of our lives at work. We might as well like what we do, right? Or feel safe. We can't be not feeling safe 30%. So it's really the role of the leader. I can't re-emphasize enough of good examples of what would make a difference.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you. It's about these actionable measures that people can take, even as simple as taking a few minutes at the start of the meeting to check in. And so it's not just saying, oh, we want transparency, or we want to communicate more, but actively involving and engaging in conversation, even in a very everyday practice like in the meeting room. So thanks for that, Elena. Oh, Avik has joined us again. Hi, Avik.
Hello, the uncertainty of our times. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
I think it's a very appropriate callback to what we were talking about, times of uncertainty and disruption, as you said. And what matters is how we handle that disruption. So welcome back.
Yes.
We're happy to have you here again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Apologies,
Not at all.
everyone. Hmm.
So Elena was actually filling in the gaps to your answer, and I'm not sure if you caught it, but I actually really enjoyed what you were talking about in terms of being consistent in your messaging. I also really enjoyed Elena's analogy about that plane, and I was just saying that to your point and Elena's analogy, if the voice of the captain changes mid-flight, people would be really feeling very disjointed. So thanks for that. So. Previously, we were also talking about real world examples where leadership decisions actually shifted trust, whether it was for the better or for the worse. And Elena was actually advising on some actionable ways that leaders can put in to ensure that people feel safe to start a conversation. For instance, just taking a few minutes at each start of the meeting to check in with everyone, do a very quick emotional check. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think the best example of that actually comes from the world of safety, where I think the American aluminum company Alcoa were facing huge issues. Profitability was down, and the new CEO took over, and he started the meeting with, "We are going to address safety," and the stock market took a tank. Uh, but I think what was different in his approach is he lived it consistently. Systems, processes, rewards were built around safety. And over a period of time, not did he just impact the safety results, the physical safety results of the organization, but he brought the organization to profitability. So again, for me, it's that consistency, that cord which runs through the organization systems and processes. When people really, and it's not written on the walls, it's not said by the leaders, but it's lived out in the organization systems and processes, that's when things start to matter. So that's really where I see, people believing the organization uh, when it comes to practical things that organizations can do. The other piece, I think, as a leader, as an individual, something that I believe really helps in building that trust and that culture of safety is really classifying mistakes. In our environment, mistakes will happen. We're doing so many things in so many ways. Mistakes will happen, and if we can classify mistakes, whether it's a learning mistake in that, it's the first time someone's doing something, it's a new environment, it's a new market, it's a new decision, there is no precedent, it's a learning mistake. The other might be, it's a judgment mistake. There was an information asymmetry, something was unknown, it was ambiguous, someone took a call and it didn't turn out the way it would. And the other piece then is negligent mistakes, right? Where people consciously negligent or break rules and practices. And I think how organizations deal with each of these, or how leaders deal with each of these, is really paramount. I think I yeah, so even negligence and intentional mistakes, if they're not dealt with by the organization, I think it impacts psychological safety of others.
That's amazing, Avik. Thanks for that. And actually, it links back to what we were talking about, that it's actually more profitable for businesses to create that environment of trust, because then people just naturally feel safe and they want to perform better, and they do perform better. So on the flip side of things, I wanted to ask if there are any myths. What are some myths about psychological safety that are actually still holding leaders back? Because we've already talked about how it is, in fact, profitable. It is good for the bottom line, and people just have this general idea that, of course, psychological safety is good. It's a good thing to have. But what are some myths that you've seen are still holding leaders back when it comes to this area?
So the first one that comes to mind, oh, that's HR thing, nothing to do with me. So I think that's would be the biggest thing, and without leader actually recognizing that, doesn't sit with HR, it sits with the business leader. So that's one common mistake. Second would be is, what is all that? I need to do my, I need to give my numbers. I need to close the quarter. Why do I need to, what empathy do I need to show? So actually being so busy in the day-to-day work without things sort of stopping and thinking, am I being an inclusive leader? Am I being a caring and for that? So that's the two things which jump out. I'll let Avik add if he thinks of.
Absolutely.
Very, very similar to Yelena, actually. I think, some individuals believe safety comes with a lowering of standards. I have to make it easy for people. And I think that's the biggest myth. I think, building a safe environment is not easy. It's actually quite difficult. And there will be difficult conversations. There will be difficult moments. And to think that, safety is, or psychological safety is about making things easier for everyone is probably the biggest myth. it comes with challenges, it comes with difficulty, and it takes a brave leader to build a psychologically safe environment.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. And really, of course, we've heard this before. It really resonates, Elena, when you say, oh, it's an HR problem. That's absolutely something that we've heard before. And that's why it got such a reaction from both Avik and myself. It was so funny because it's so relatable. And going to your point, Avik, absolutely as well. It is having those difficult moments that leaders perhaps don't understand are difficult because they're so necessary. And despite them being difficult, they are necessary to have. So now I'd like to look towards the future as we come towards the end of our conversation part of the session before we go into our Q&A session. Um, if we look towards the future, what is one habit that leaders should stop and one habit that they should actually start? We've been talking so much about leadership and leadership decisions. I think a really good way to help leaders to make good decisions would be actually to see what habits they should stop and what habits they should start. Perhaps ladies first again.
So I think I would put it in one example. So first of all, I think again it goes back to leaders. Fundamentally, it's not HR, it's not a finance. It is a business prerogative to drive psychological safety. So many times I do feel that when employee comes and shares, they could be treated with judgment. So, and that's what they are scared, because they will be judged. And sort of instead of, when someone comes to leader and says something, so what, instead of saying seriously or like really, why don't you switch to say, oh, okay, tell me more about that, or why would you feel like you have to do it, or so answer with empathy, not judgment. And this is what I've been working a lot with my leaders and organization is, so instead of saying no, try to say, oh no. Just adding that oh will completely change the tone and perception and creating that environment. Don't judge, show curiosity. So that would be my kind of one answer.
That's great. And it's so easy to do and deceptively easy to start to doing. It's just changing that script a little bit. So thanks for that really, really important piece of advice. How about Avik?
I'll just build on Elena. I think Elena touched it beautifully. I think really what she said in terms of the judgment, I also think, judging post the outcomes of a decision, it's very easy to do sort of look back in hindsight and decide whether it was a good decision or a bad decision. And I think that creates a huge sort of risk and a feeling of uncertainty amongst employees. Will I be judged? How will history see me? Or how will my performance review see me based on things that emerge? I took a decision at a point in time with what was available to me. And I think that piece is really important for leaders. That's something that leaders need to stop doing, is taking future information and reviewing backwards to decide if it was good, bad, or ugly. So that would be my one call out. I think again, clarity, reassurance, that calm voice of the pilot. That's something that's necessary.
Thanks for that. I think we are in agreement here. And it's nice to see that overlapping between your pieces of advice. So I would like to end this section of the conversation now by just giving leaders who are listening some advice. If you can distill the insight that leaders can take away from creating safe cultures in uncertain times into three key points, what would they be?
Definitely showing humility, right? So it's about being empathetic, being vulnerable, and yes, show your humility, show your human side, right? Second is invite voices. right? Invite voices. There is assuring that there is no right or wrong answer, assuring that A, you will be heard, uh, B, we will learn together, right? And of course, as I mentioned before, responding with curiosity. Always think of, presumption of innocence, always think good rather than bad. So yeah, so these are the three of the things that I could put. So show humility, invite voices, and respond with curiosity.
Yeah, for me, it's really consistency of principles, consistency of principles when it comes to direction, consistency of principles when it comes to judgment, consistency of principles when it comes to recovery from mistakes. If leaders can be consistent around their principles, I think that leads to a lot more in employee well-being. Times are uncertain, we can't change that, but the consistency of principles we apply can stay consistent, and that gives employees a degree of certainty in these uncertain times. Yeah, Anubhavi, did you have a question?
Hi,
Yes, sir.
yes.
I have a question from my side. When
Great.
Aline, she mentioned about, oh yes, when she mentioned about that particular section and we are discussing about leadership part, Adeline said, and when Avik, when he mentioned about the psychological part, I have often come across myself as an individual when I was a fresher on a very subjective note, and I've seen other individuals to graduating and interning. Well, it becomes very rosy once the offer letter is released. Everything looks fine with every proportionate corporate part. But right after 2 to 3 days, I have seen new colleagues of mine, new candidates of mine leaving the organization. And the answer was simple. It wasn't the job description, it wasn't their work, it wasn't the salary. But what mitigated them to go ahead was bullying. So, my question in very short is how can a leader look into these many parts of bullying and like a leader's often he's treating everybody equally without any prejudgment, but how to stop that bully so that new talents and new hires are a part of the organization and they don't have to change every now and then. So because it's quite apparent in this dystopian corporate world, so that's my side. So yeah.
From my perspective, but I guess Anubhuti, different organizations are different. But the reality is, in today's workplace, there is no room for a bully, and organizations need to have those consistency of principles in terms of dealing with bullying behavior. I think the other piece there is there's something you said in terms of organizations having sort of dealing with employees equally. One of the very early things I learned as a management trainee in my career, a senior mentor gave me this advice was, your five fingers are different. You treat them differently, you use them differently, and I think that's really important in an organization. Every employee is different. There may be consistencies of principles, but how you motivate someone, how you engage someone, and how you deal with bad behavior in someone needs to be customized to the individual. The principles may be consistent, but the actual actions need to be customized. So I would say, it requires a deeper dive to understand the specific case. But really speaking, there is custom solutions on consistent principles.
Thanks for that answer, Vic. Totally agree. It's all about keeping consistent to the principles and yet also customizing where necessary. I hope that answered your question, Anupti. Eliana, anything to add?
So I guess in this particular sort of example, when employee leaves within few days, I guess fundamentally, my question to the company would be, this did you not know that you had a bully? So I typically don't like labeling without understanding both sides. It can't be that organization was tolerating this for a while. So then, I really would want to know what happened. Right. So there are, for someone who choose to leave rather than talk to the line manager, it's a bit of or talk to HR, it's a bit of an extreme, right? So it means that we didn't convince you that all of the other great things you're learning, your experience could be better if you speak up, and we will deal with this. So fundamentally, bullying, if proven, is unacceptable. There are policies against bullying. There are policies in the corporation that protect and sort of for reprimand. Reporting is absolutely important, but again, if the company created situation when new joiners can't openly talk to the line manager, I think the company has big issues with the organizational culture. I've not heard that, but if you know someone who did this, it's a big problem in the company. It might be better that the person left.
Absolutely. It is something that should absolutely not be tolerated, and it should, as you said, Elena, it is not just principles, it goes beyond principles now. It's all about company policy for sure. Thanks for that answer. And actually, our chat box has been really busy, even throughout our conversation. We have a couple more new questions popping up in addition to the comments that have been happening. I think there is a question from someone labeled admin. So I'm assuming that's not your real name, but if it is, it's a very cool name. But it says, this question from admin. Generally, safety has to be part of values of any organization, then safety culture. Values are cherished from within and are owned by the individual. Oh, that's a really good point. And with change of leader, culture may get changed. So then the real challenge remains how to ensure safe culture is retained with change in leadership, how to maintain the synchronization, consistency, and efficiency between the system and the uncertainty. That's a very detailed question. Thanks for that. Avik, would you like to go first?
And to answer that, for me, the culture and over a period of time shouldn't be so individually driven in organizations. I appreciate, family organizations or organizations as they mature, you'll have hero figures. But as organizations reach maturity, the culture of the organization should really be driven by the systems and the processes that exist within the organization. They are the reflections of the culture of the organization. They determine how work happens here more than any one individual. So I think, with maturity, it is not so much individuals who drive culture, but organizations through their processes that drive culture, and without bullying behavior, for example. So the organization systems, processes, policies are the guardians of that culture of the organization, and they prescribe what is allowed, what is not allowed, and how things get done in an organization more than any one individual.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great insight and advice. It's more about what we call the greater good, right? It's more about that collective greater good when it comes to that perspective instead of the individuality. And how we can do that is, as you said, Avik, setting healthy and processes and systems in place in the everyday practice of the organization. Elena, anything to add?
Yeah, so I think the short answer would be, if you don't want the culture to change, work on your internal succession, because the person would have brought in through the organization via promoted via the same lenses, the same culture that the company values. Now, it is ambitious to expect that new person will not come with new things. The fundamental question, we are bringing great people so that they can tell us what needs to be done, versus trying to tell the person you are here and because that's how the previous person was doing. So I think there is a reason why the person was chosen over, let's say, someone else. Because if you put your HR practices correctly, if you put your sort of recruitment values, values through the recruitment lens, I would imagine the person come with the similar characters. I did have experience, though, when someone new came, and it created rather uh, difficult environment for the individual, it is again those mechanisms of speaking up, those mechanisms to work with HR that definitely help in the previous case. But yeah, short answer is build your succession.
That's a really great point. Actually, succession planning is something that um, actually falls through the cracks. So thanks for that, Elena. And it's also going back to what Avik said too. Again, there's some resonance between the two answers, which is really great. Basically, it's just about setting really, really good mechanisms and processes in place so that it's a healthy operating system that organizations have. So we do have another question. We have just a little bit over 5 minutes left in our session. We might only be able to take one more question. And this is from Rajesh. Will there be different psychological safety criteria for millennials and other generations? For instance, Gen Z or Gen X?
Yeah, I get a go at
Yes,
that.
please. Yes, please.
So if I were to just give one answer, that would be no. I think the core criteria of psychological safety are the same for all humans, regardless of the age. But of course, different generations sort of might have different things making them feel unsafe. I think millennials would probably be more, perceptive to sort of changes in the organizations, whilst for someone who's been in the workforce for long, quick way to adapt would be different. And let me give you specifically specifically why I say no. I was once attending event on age differences, and the presenter pointed at someone who was standing in the crowd and looking very young, and he said, "Okay, tell me something. What would you like from your employer?" And the gentleman said, "Oh, I definitely want, even I'm young, but I want to be respected for knowledge. I would like learning opportunities. I would like a good boss. I would like a good pay." Then he pointed at someone who probably represents generation that's already retiring in the organization. They said, "Okay, tell me what you would like from your employer." And he said, "Well, definitely, I would like a good leader. I still would like to keep learning. I know a lot and I would like the company to respect it." And when he was saying, I'm like, "Oh my God, you're saying the same thing. You actually, as a human, want the same thing." You could argue that millennials want it faster and the person who's a bit elder was prepared to work for the same whole life, but feelings are feelings. So to me, I think there won't be difference. So again, I'm keen to hear what Avik has to say.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, look, I think, at a very human level, that hierarchy of needs that humans have is fairly consistent, be that, levels, be that age, be that generation. The hierarchy of needs is fairly consistent. So at a basic level, those psychological safety is a very human and very basic need, and it needs to be addressed. I think where Yelena started this conversation, it might mean different things to people. And what I said, the five fingers are different, they need to be addressed differently. So the how might differ, but the substance, the principle of what we're delivering to our employees remains consistent regardless of generation.
Absolutely. I'm really loving the resonance between both your answers. And actually, because we've been pretty quick with the question and answers, I think we can squeeze in one last question, which has been in the chat box. It's from Suhas. Please forgive me if I mispronounced your name. Organizations that have been labeled as great place to work. Have you seen any of these organizations that have stood the test of time to uphold the culture of safety? I feel this shield of safety is under contradiction. So maybe Abik, this time you can go first.
So Has, my view, there are definitely organizations that do hold up values consistently over a period of time. There are organizations, without naming names, I would say, which have 50, 70, 100 years held up certain basic principles, and they are known and they're lauded for what they bring into the workplace. I think the environment is consistently changing. There's a lot of uncertainty, but if organizations have a certain consistency of principle, I think that's what's going to differentiate really great or safe places to work from an employee perspective.
Thanks for that, Elena.
So it's interesting, a very interesting conversation. So first of all, let's go to the definition of great place to work, right? So there are multiple companies that are actually doing that labeling. You know, you pay me a little bit and I will certify, or, you know, so one of the better surveys so I was in BP at that time, and sort of we decided, okay, how about, you know, we go for the great place to work, and one of those. And what it basically did is sort of they gave surveys to our employees on certain things, and then they did the same to all other contestants, and BP didn't come in the first 10. And the company that came first was Singapore Prison. And I was like, how is that? I mean, out of 10 people, 10 would want to work for us, not for prison. And what struck me, though, is that they said, but their people love their jobs and feel connected with their jobs more than your people. And that makes it the great place to work, because they select the right people. Yes, those people that work for you may not want to work there, but they manage to find people that feel culturally, feel engaged, drive efforts for that organization. So they fit into the backbone, and they really showed the case study, and it was an aha moment for me. So organization that is a great place to work is not the one that has fruits in pantry or offers 2 days leave more. It's the company where people want to come and work every day. So that company, in a full definition, I strongly believe will uphold and stand stand the weathers. One caveat, though, again, it all depends on the leader. So if organization appoints leader that is true to the values, then it definitely will stand. Sorry, long-winded, but I thought I'd share this.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Suhas seems to agree. So that's great. I'm glad that we answered your question. Thank you so much for that insight with that story that you've shared. And actually, with that, it is already 5 o'clock. We're at the end of our time together. Thank you so much, Sanjay, who messaged in the group chat. So thank you for joining us for yet another session on Conversations on Change. Please do give another round of applause to our guest speakers, Elena and Avik. Thank you so much for all the insights and great additions to this conversation. And thank you everyone for being so participative and for the dynamic engagement within the chat box. Really appreciate you not only showing up, and thanks Phyllis. Phyllis is actually not only a returning participant, but she was a speaker last year. So thank you so much for attending as well, Phyllis. So for those who would like to revisit this conversation, please do visit our Change It All pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. We will have posts of the recording later on. So please do like us and follow us to get more updates. And of course, do check out our podcast channels on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. And you can revisit this conversation there, or you can catch up on previous conversations. In the meantime, have a really lovely Thursday evening and a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye, everyone.